Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock episode 27, the quintessential podcast for everything that is European Rocket League esports. I am the Eternal Jay, and joining me is Digital Bacon, and what has hopefully been a much better weekend for him than it has been for me. How are you doing today, bud?
Yeah, doing good. Not as ill as you, of course, Jay, but it's been a good week. We've finally got so many new things unveiled. RLRS has kicked on the way, and it's been blooming epic. And then, of course, both me and you on Monday night had probably the funnest game of Rocket League we have ever casted over in TCS.
Like, I was going to bring that up. It was like, yeah, it's fantastic, but like my casting was shit throughout the entire day, and obviously working a LAN event all the way in Cardiff, it's like, you know, I was just on a 2-hour train, like, you know, over 2 days, and my God, that event was fucking hell, because, like, you know, I was working on an hour's sleep and doing a whole, like, what was it? We got up at 5 a.m., finished at 10 p.m. that particular day, so it was a long fucking day.
Well, can you remember with Epic LAN, went back in February, I was ill, and then like somehow did the full recovery in the space of a day, and I came back and I was like, I don't know how I've done this. And I felt, actually, I'm not going to lie, for like crafters and all of that listening in, I felt like a bit of a dick to go away for a whole day and then come back and do the finals.
Well, that's the thing, we had enough staff. We had enough staff on that event that we thought that we could that we figured we could pull it off. I was in a situation where it was literally it was a 4-person LAN event, like with 2 admins, 2 casters. So we all had to like sort of share in the setting up and packing down and everything. So obviously I'm exhausted when the first match comes up, going for hours and hours and hours, and the stupidest thing happened in the middle of the live stream, right? So there's this team called the David Black Gang. You can probably see where this is going, right? I'm so fucking tired that literally I'm just like, I'm operating off the fumes of Red Bull. By accident, I'm falling asleep in my chair. I call the team the David Black Gang.
Oh no.
That got clipped. That got clipped so fucking hard. I mean, you know what? Like, I was so dumb by that point. But like, again, that's what happens when you're working off an hour's worth of sleep trying to do something absolutely insane. So I'll hold my hand up. It was stupid. It was just, it was a one-off moment. From that point, I literally took the headset off and went to go get some more Red Bull because I was fucked. I was so fucked that weekend. And honestly, I think that's what contributed to me being so sick. So, yes, I mean, it doesn't help that that's all compounded with some other news. Of course, we're talking about the esports shop items, which we'll talk about in more detail a little bit later on, coming up in our news section of the show. The RLRS B stream has been announced, and our boys at Rival Esports have claimed it. And of course, we're talking about the second week of RLCS and the RLRS, alongside mailbag questions from you, the viewers, via the Discord channel. So, let's start with the RLRS. We'll start with the Rival Esports news. Big stuff. We kind of knew about this going back for a few months now, so we've kind of been sort of like preparing for this and trying to like just wait until Rival Esports say, boom, let's get this done. Finally, we have a proper alternative to the off-stream or B-stream matches, Bacon.
Yeah, so like as a little bit of insight behind the window, I can remember, weren't allowed to say this, of course, but it'd been like 2 months, maybe even longer ago, from Rewind anyway, right? Sarnix reached out and they're like, okay, we're trying to get the community on board. We want your proposal to this. We put our proposal from Rewind and everything like that in, and they're like, unfortunately, we didn't go for you because we wanted one org that could do NA and EU. And I was like, fucking Rival have got it. Before anyone has said, I'm just sitting back grinning going, this is actually probably for the best, because again, do stuff for Rewind, so I would love to have it, but the overall, it's the better decision, because this is the one-stop shop, essentially, for all B-stream action, which is great. I wish that this partnership is going to keep on going, because then it brings Rival up as the B-stream to the RLRS, and then, Jay, cross your fingers with me, when RLCS expands, hopefully they're the B-stream for that, because you're going to have a B-stream if anyone wants there to be, you know, like 12 teams in RLCS or double round robin, whatever like that. You've got to have B-streams for that number of games, don't you? And hopefully Rival have got everything set up for the future. I mean, we know the lads in that absolute fantastic environment. Everything's always top-notch quality. And to me, this just shows there's the trust there within the community, like we've seen from the Renegade Cup. Rival always puts out the top job out of anyone, really. A bit jealous, you know, but that's how it is. And they everyone works the hardest there, and well, you can see from the results. Admittedly, I will say the NA broadcast on Saturday didn't get great viewership because it didn't have the host over. But as time goes on, people learn about that consistent spot. We could be seeing great numbers there on the Saturday stream. We're just lucky with the EU guys there. It's an hour after EU ends, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I didn't get to watch much of the matches this weekend, but, you know, I know that Crafters and Jam did a massively good job about it. So, you know, congratulations to those guys. I'm really hyped for them. You know, I am a little bit gutted based off of what we were talking about behind the scenes about Rewind's particular pitch, but I'm not going to dive into any details unless you want to. You know, but at the same time...
Like I said, it was that case of I was really hyped for it because there's the potential there. And then as soon as we got told that we didn't have it, someone else had it, I was like, no, that's fair. That I understand it, and like I said, for the longevity of it, if this turns into a long partnership, I fully back it. Like that is
absolutely,
it is the best result, and that's what is best for Rocket League and our whole community.
No, and Nate, you know what? Like, I'm also the same on the same boat. Like, there is no other organization I would rather pick than Rival Esports. Like, you know, and yeah, personal biases aside, you know, they're the reason why I'm here right now. They're the reason I'm commentating Rocket League and everything. But you know, like again, based off of what I've heard behind the scenes and based off of, you know, all the conversations that we all have in our private staff chats, like those guys work their asses off for very little. So it's finally good to see them getting a fucking really good break. And again, I hope it leads to more because hopefully, you know, RLCS expansion has been sort of talked about and, you know, requested from the community about as much as in-game items has, and we've already seen in-game items come forward around when's our 10-team, 12-team league, when's our double round robin coming about, you know, all these things are, you know, they surely must be on the horizons, and I'm hoping that Rival are at the forefront to sort of help cover all that stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. The most hardworking guys they had, RLRS in Season 1, of course, and like when we look at how Sonics is trying to approach the community, it's not wanting to do, I would say, a wide brush across the whole community, but they're wanting to promote certain orgs which have proven their worth and that they're going to stand the test of time. Rival, Rocket Baguette, Rewind, Nexus, list continues, you know, and so if they're just picking these orgs and sort of trying to bolster them in certain ways where they can help, it's fantastic, especially since one thing I absolutely love about the Rocket League community is the want to sort of work together. In the EU scene, I know it's a little bit different over in NA, but in EU, everyone, like, if there was some sort of big tournament going on and Rival, Rewind, Rocket Baguette, Son had gone, okay, let's all just put this in together and pool our resources, you know it'd happen. And just the amount of work ethic that everyone has is superb.
Yeah, and you know, I'm happy that we've got this shit down pat in EU. So exciting times coming forward, and it's great that we start on a great note for Rival Esports because our second point is going to be about the esports shop. You all saw this coming. You all fucking saw this coming. Do you know what? Let's start with some positives on this front because, you know, because there are some pretty fucking stupid things about this, but again, we'll start with some positives to sort of just get our feet off the ground. I will admit the in-game items look pretty sick. They're all right, you know. Like I had a chance to check out the NRG decals; those look amazing. You know, the Dignitas wheels also look like some fucking, you know, bling bling shit that you see on like some baller ass, you know, modified cars on the street. So, you know, those look awesome as well. You know, I do feel like there's a couple of logistical issues with them, you know, in how they don't change colors with cars, so it can get confusing at times. But honestly, do you know what? I'm happy with the items themselves. Bacon, what are your thoughts?
So the items, top quality. This is actually really good, but there are a few missed marks. For example, stuff like banners, absolutely fine. Wheels are fine. But when it came to decals, you needed like a home and away kit decal because which links to both the blue and orange team, because I can see this like a massive, like, you know, a deer in the headlights. Let's just take NRG's decal for starters. That is the same color no matter what team you're on. So what if you have two guys that are running near enough the exact same car on both teams? That sort of stuff gets real confusing. You needed to have like the blue team be your home team colors, whatever, so that normal NRG decal, and then the orange side have, instead of the black on the decal, change that to white or whatever. You've got, they should have been looking at the Overwatch League and how they run this there and been able to just copy paste the idea. The shop, The rotating timers does, of course, still annoy me. Which,
yes,
is going to annoy everyone. I've looked at it, and there seems to be a few differences in wheels, which I'm a bit hyped that there's going to be some variations amongst them there, and whatnot. The different prices expected, with banners being 100, esports tokens, as they call them, decals being 300, and then those wheels seemingly 500. The purchasing of tokens is a little bit like the reason why they're bringing in a new currency and you can't buy keys is because the tokens are split evenly amongst the orgs. So even if you buy a Cloud9 decal, for example, the money spent there, let's say the 100 coins, which equivalates to, I'm just quickly looking now, roughly about 77 pence for us, I'd imagine 99 cents over in America. That would be spread out evenly amongst every single esports org.
Wait,
it's not
what?
just
Are you for real?
I would imagine so, because that's generally how it does. Otherwise,
no, that's fucking stupid.
No, because I'm just taking this from how other sort of org item works in other games. If it don't work like that, then they've got a solid, that's how it links up, and so 33% of 30 pence or whatever goes over to Cloud9. That's how they pay them. Generally, though, I'm just thinking from other esports orgs items in other games, they generally spread them across the board so that everyone wins from it. That's how it's generally done.
I found that the sales of the particular items and the branding, so if you buy a Cloud9 thing, it goes straight to Cloud9. Or if you buy a Dignitas, it goes to Dignitas. Like, that's how we do it in Counter-Strike, at least. I can't verify for other games, because I'm not really sure how their own economies work.
Rainbow Six and Overwatch, they do it to everyone.
Well, I think that's personally stupid.
Because they're the current systems which seem to be most favourable. But then at the same time, it's quite hard to do the additional sort of adding on teams in that manner, because, of course, then it favours having fewer teams so that you make more money in a lot of sense. I don't know. It's a bit weird one. So I'd imagine they probably would, like you said, go for, say, 300 tokens means 90 pence. I don't know, $1.20, whatever conversion it is, going to that direct org. That'd be a lot of faff. That's the only problem.
Yes, a lot of faff. A lot of faff is certainly how you describe this fucking esports shop.
I think that's actually the best way to describe the shop.
Let's jump into the bullshit. Right now, I'm going to start low on the bullshit and really go high, because they also released how they're going to split everything, how they're going to split the revenue between them and the organization. So, 70-30 is the number. 30% going to esports organizations. Yeah, fucking what now? You're going to take the majority of their branding? Are you sorry? Go on.
Right, my look at this is generally within games and that, the actual org items are either a basic template, which that earns the 50-50 because you're not doing much, or the actual esports org themselves get whatever program they're using, in case here it'd be Unreal, and they have to make the skin themselves to put in the game. Thus it's 50-50 because it's not really any extra effort to the game devs themselves. But here it definitely looks like, with the whole styling, that Psyonix themselves designed the decals, the wheels, all that jazz, and so they're taking that extra 20% as their fee for designing all the things, so that the esports orgs themselves, your Dignitas, your Evil Geniuses, don't have to do anything. They just got to consent their name to it. That's how it looks and how they're warranting this to me.
I still want 50-50. I'd still say 50-50 because the same thing happens.
It's more alluring to orgs.
No, but the thing is that that doesn't always you can't always just say an organization has to design their own decals. That doesn't quite work like that. Like Valve don't do that. Like Valve, when they roll around with the majors, they design stickers all customized, and they have a 50. I think it's a 70-30 split against their favor. I know that they have a bit of a split against their favor in general with Steam and the way that whole thing works. Mm-hmm. That's just how a marketplace happens. The people selling the product take a pretty decent cut of the money. Usually it's a majority cut of the money, and the marketplace themselves that's fine. We'll take a little sideways so we can keep the lights on everything. That's how money works. I don't think there's any other shop that sort of works against that sort of thing unless I don't know. I'm trying to figure out some sort. Again,
Well,
I don't really know any sort of scenario.
Let's try and actually work out the numbers here right now. So, just you buying a banner, the most basic one, 100 esports tokens, which we're saying roughly equates to either 99 cents, because that's what I'd imagine it would be, or $1, flat $1. So straight away, Valve take, is it 25% of each purposes? Valve takes as their sort of like commission, whatever. I'm going to just quickly Google, literally, Steam tax. Whatever. So there you go. Just for that, just take the number of 25%. Off the top of my head, I don't actually know what it is, whether it's 30 or 25, because you've got Unreal coming in saying 20, and that's why a lot of these new all these game devs are going over the Unreal, is purely because they make more money off it in comparison.
You mean Epic or?
Epic, that's it. Why am I saying Unreal?
Unreal? Like they're an engine, not a fucking marketplace.
But Epic owns the Unreal Engine. That's where I'm getting the confusion there. Sorry. So yeah, 75 cents. So which, if you're taking 70/30, then off each sale, these orgs are only making, say, 30 cents, 20 pence or so from a banner, and then ramp that up however you need to multiply that by 3 for the decals, multiply it by 5 for the wheels. It's a little bit duff.
It is. I really feel like 50-50 should have been the split out here, and I do know that Psyonix have said, a little bit a proportion is going to go to the revenue from the revenue of the a proportion of the revenue is also going to go to the prize pools for league play, and sure, but we don't know how much that is. It could very well be that just 20% in total goes to the prize pool. At that point, Psyonix is taking a 50% cut. Which maybe there was a deal with the organizations to get that sorted out. But unless I see numbers, I don't really know how to trust, or I don't really know what to trust and what the numbers really mean. I don't really know what's going to be, what the actual split is going to be. And that's something, and all right, fine, we move on from that. Okay, the 30% split isn't the worst thing in the world, I'm sure that organizations would have signed up for it. My next issue comes in the teams that are involved. Now, we've got NRG, Dignitas, G2, Mousesports, Rogue, Splice, Cloud9, Evil Geniuses, Ghost Gaming, Team Vitality, and TSM. Are there any two names in particular, Bacon, that seem to be missing from that particular list?
Oh,
that would
the
also
two probably
sell like
biggest
hot
names
fucking
in
fire.
the whole world.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
PSG. To which, I'm going to say it now, my only thoughts to this is Barca was probably a bit late to it, so that's understandable.
That's fair.
So that's one, given as a excuse. I'm going to say excuse, but logical reasoning. PSG, though, I can only put this down, and no one take my word for this is bacon bullshit, is just the agreement upon what the decal and items would be. There couldn't be a middle ground struck, and this is still going to be talked about between the two different departments, because like we said, can you remember, I was like, all I want is just the football jerseys, but on the cars, because that'd be a fucking baller. And Psyonix probably didn't like that so much, because it goes against the styles. Like, you can look at the cars here and see, there's a very unified theme. Like, if you go into the game right now, guys, and look between, I'm going to say the Cloud9 Evil Geniuses decal, you can see they've got a certain, like, design zoning to them and how they fit around the cars. Like, the same placement of logos, that sort of thing, and all of that jazz. Also, I'm very confused why the Cloud9 logo is black and blue when their colours are white and blue.
I mean, to be fair, like, the general colour itself is just blue. I don't think there's actually a white and blue colour scheme. Regardless, though, I do think there's a serious missed opportunity for PSG. I'm not sure if there's behind-the-scene elements or anything like that, but, like, come on, guys. PSG... You're going to miss out on capitalizing on one of the biggest brands in the world. Like, I go down the gym, twice a week these days. And, oftentimes I do see people exercising in PSG fucking jerseys, Like, it's a big name brand. Like, if you got that in your game, those would fly from the shelves as soon as they went on sale. That wouldn't even go for it.
So I got my hair cut literally this morning. I was meant to be doing it yesterday, but I got caught up and had to leave it for this morning. In the bars, you get a talk, like, what do you do for your job, all that. Speaking about why I do that, and the guy was like, oh shit, you commentate on Rocket League? I love that game. And I was like, oh yeah, what's your favourite team? And it's like, team, what do you mean? I was like, well, the esports team, like PSG, Dignitas, and went, Barcelona went, hold up, PSG are in that. Fucking, what's the link? Where do I watch this? And I was just there like, oh, dude, this is awesome. And
so
it is
you've
literally
actually helped Rocket League Esports right there,
like,
dude.
It's the most I'll ever do, yeah. But it's just that fact of you could sell this to so many people just by purely going, oh, PSG are on your car. I'm going to say normies, but your football fans that don't know about the esports will buy that up. They don't give a shit about watching RLCS, but for the fact that they can have PS fucking G on their car, or Barcelona, give someone some Chelsea Man U, give them a Real Madrid. Oh my God, it would sell so good. And this is what I've been saying, Jay, about the Premiership pack. Just do it right. Put the jerseys on the cars.
Well, for now,
and Psyonix will be rolling like proper Scrooge McDuck style through piles of gold.
Well, for now, let's focus on the brands that are already in the esports right now. Again, this was a massive missed opportunity. Like, I don't see how they fucked this up. Like, I cannot see. Like, for me, my priority would be get PSG through the door. Like, you know, if I was running the esports shop right now, I'd be like, no, get PSG through the door. I don't care how you do it. Just do it. Just get them in, because like there is one spot missing from this whole thing. You know, like FC Barcelona is great and everything. That would also be fantastic. Obviously, you know, caveats in how late they joined the RLCS, but you know, PSG have been here for years. You know, they've been around ever since they picked up the frontline roster, so we're talking like, you know, summer 2017. You know, it's been almost 2 years right now. You know, like how have you not sorted out a deal with these guys to get their items in the esports shop? Like, that seems completely backwards to me. And do you know what else seems backwards, Bacon?
What seems backwards, Jay?
The
you going
actual
on a further
way that
rant?
the esport, yeah. How fucking hard must it really be to get something right in this esport? Like with this game, like what the fuck is this bullshit? Timed exclusives, basically. 24 hours, 6 items featured in a shop. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. You do this with the regular DLC. I can pop into the shop right now, buy whatever car pack, buy the MLB pack, and boom. It's easy. It's done. It's there. It's basic. It's simple. It's fucking consumer choice. This shit, though, it's like, are you trying to make this esport fail? Are you trying to make this shop fail? Because right now, let me tell you something. When iGnite posted on Twitter all the decals and shit for the TSM stuff, the first thing I thought was, fuck, I want that shit. Go to the esports site, in-game items, only one team from EU is there. My choices are limited, I get fucked. This is the stupidest esports shop system I think I have ever seen, right? And I fucking work, and I've worked with Valve, right? That's fucking saying something.
For me, it's just the whole, and everyone's been saying it, you had seen it on Twitter, the sort of fear of losing it out mentality that they are prying upon, and it's what really annoys me. Now, I don't mind it for stuff like Fortnite, where it's a free game, and quite often you can get a lot of the shit anyway, and it's just these very exclusive, limited time things. That mentality works when it's the spring or winter events. That's absolutely fine. But when it's stuff like this, which you should just be able to go on anytime, like as soon as that update launched, I actually wanted to go on and go get, like you said, I would love to get a PSG one, but I would have got the TSM instead and just been there like, right, I want to slap that on my car and just play because that's good fun. And I love the TSM, like logo, colours, the team themselves, all of that jazz. But the fact that I can't annoys me in some regards. So that, for one, Psyonix is losing out now because they haven't received that money. And then two, it's just the fact that it's pissing people off. You do not. It's shooting yourselves in the foot because you're annoying people. It makes no sense. And then also, at the same degree, that things are on different timers. Why? Example, the free first decals, so Cloud9 Splice and EG are on a 24-hour timer between them. The Dignitas wheels, the Ghost banner and the NRG decal are on a 48-hour timer. Why make this confusing? Why split up the timers if you're going to do timers? Everything just is so backwards, and I don't know. It really confuses the fuck out of me. Who thought this was all a good idea?
I'm not sure who to blame in this instance, Psyonix or just the general gaming landscape, because do you know what? If we didn't have fucking loot boxes and really exploitative methods of basically like trying to squeeze every last drop of money out of the gaming industry, like I don't think we'd see this shit right now, you know? Like the companies get away with it all the fucking time. It don't matter who it is. EA, Ubisoft, Valve do it some of the time, except Valve are actually, you know, some of the guys who know that they don't need to do it, so they don't do it that often. You know, like shit like that. It's like, come the fuck on, my guys.
Well, it was just to the point, right, of when EA announced, like, because they've got that new Star Wars game coming out from Respawn, the guys of Titanfall and Apex and that, and they're using it as a marketing stunt and everything. Oh, it's not going to have any in-game like loot boxes and all that. I'm going, it's a single-player fucking game. I bloody well hope not. Like, why do I have to get a loot box when I'm not playing competitively? I don't want any cosmetics like that. Why? I just want to play a single-player experience. And
they've used that whole thing as a fucking marketing ploy because that's how bad it's gotten. And this is just like the latest in a long string of things that has fucked up gaming for the likes of me. Like, it's not hard, guys. It's not hard. Let me tell you, your day one sales will be through the fucking roof if you just put everything up there. I don't need to wait for 24 hours for a fucking game to be available on Steam. Right now, I can go and buy Stardew Valley, a game that I've had on my wish list for a while right now. I can do that right here, right now. I don't have to wait for shit. It's there. It's ready. It's there for anyone to purchase at any time. That's how you do it. It's not hard. What is the fucking point in this stupid timer? And I know what people are going to say. I know that on the subreddit, something went up about how you're going to be able to get all the items at the right time. That's not the point, though. I'm going to be at Insomnia this weekend. I'm going to be there for 5 days straight. I'm not going to get a chance to log on. I'm not going to get a chance to catch some of those items. If TSM cycles in and cycles out, fuck, I've got to wait another 2 weeks, right? That's not the point. Not everyone's going to be home at the same time. Not everyone's going to be able to log in all the time. Like, we all got jobs. We all got shit to do. We all have things we want to do. Sometimes we can't even afford that stuff, you know? That's why it's a problem. I might not be able to justify being able to buy a Cloud9 decal or an NRG decal at this moment while it's in cycle. I might be able to do that in a couple of weeks when I get paid, though, you know? That's the issue right there. It's consumer choice. It's a basic fucking element of running a marketplace, and it should be in place for every marketplace in the world. It's not here, and that's the problem. I don't give a fuck about your statistics. I don't give a fuck about how often, how everything's going to cycle through eventually, because you can't even guarantee that shit anyway. I don't give a fuck. Give me my marketplace. Give me everything right there, right then, right now, so I can buy it whenever the fuck I like and leave it at that. Don't give me your timers. Don't give me your statistics. Don't give me your bullshit.
Yeah, the only time I would have liked to seen a timer in the marketplace for the esports shop items is some sort of special decal a week after RLCS is won by a team, and that is like a limited 1 week, 2 week period where you can get that team being like with a special like RLCS champion on it and that is absolutely fine. A limited time item like that is epic and people want that. Because, of course, naturally, if it's there for all time and you can buy it, it loses that sort of specialty to it. You know, you weren't there during the moment. I can understand the not, like, you know, like the non-tradable aspect to it. That is fine for me. I don't know about you, Jay, what your thoughts on that, but for me, that's sort of like part of the whole them being able to track who buys it and all of that aspect, which shouldn't really be too big a problem because they get the money anyway, but whatever. But it's just the whole purchasing nature of it, everything being there. When they've already got all the items, they must have it all made by now. Every single item must be made, unless they're still creating them as time goes on, which would be a bit worrying. But for me right now, yeah, just the nature of it is so dumb. I want there to be 11 boxes on this menu, each team's name on there, and then just literally list every single item I can buy, and then maybe a 10%, 20% off discount if I buy the full team pack, because that's how you get like more sales. You want to buy everything, because realistically, I don't give a shit about the banner. I don't give a shit about the wheels. All I care about is that decal. Like I said, I want a home and away one. And if it suddenly became like, oh, it's only 200 more coins and I'll get some wheels and the banner thrown in, I'll be there like, oh yeah, I might get that. And so you're selling more off and making a little bit more money that way. That's how you do it, and that is the smart way. And if you've ever looked at any other esports shop, that's what they've done. And then Science come in here, and it's like they've looked at what Fortnite done and went, how can we make this worse?
Exactly.
It's just dumb
Exactly.
as balls.
Like, you know, I absolutely agree with your notion on like a specialized special decal for the champions or like some sort of like rare shiny edition. You know, like absolutely fine if you want to make that a timed exclusive, because naturally that would cost more. That would be more desirable. I absolutely understand that. But for every item in the shop, again, just give me my marketplace. Just give me one screen, one thing where I can just scroll through and buy what I want and leave it at that. It's easy. It's basic. It's just so fucking simple. How hard does it have to be? It doesn't, it just doesn't need to be that hard, guys. It really doesn't. It fucking really doesn't. Anyway, let's move on from that into something that kind of caught my eye a little bit. Actually, I don't even know if we should cover this, Bacon. Like, I'm just sort of like a bit weirded out by this whole thing. I don't know what you're.
I'm not weirded out by it all. I don't think this actual one needs to be talked about because it makes sense. I haven't seen anyone complain about it. I actually think it's rather cool what happened. Like, I'm loving that.
I mean, I have a bit of a different perspective on this one. I mean, on Twitter, this went up from Subpar, but in HD. Shout out to Colin Stumpy, love those guys. If you haven't checked out their podcast, you absolutely should. But you know, I sort of saw this on Twitter where they were hanging out in the RLCS studio, and obviously they've been out there for, I think it was NAB. I believe it was for NAB at some point.
Yeah, it's a convention because I know Doomsday was out there and he was telling me about it. They're basically showing off like cameras and all this shit, and they're at a convention center doing commentating and putting on a whole presentation, whatever. And then in Vegas, and then they just went out to California, a bit of a holiday, have fun, meet up with all the Rocket League lot. Good shit.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see them kind of like do this. But there's a certain, when I saw this, I had a bit of a weird, sort of like back and forth moment where there was a part of me that was like, okay, this is cool, but why are you not bringing them on as a guest spot to commentate the RLCS guys? You know, I think that they're ready.
Work and they don't have visas for working out there.
Well, they would have had to obtain it for NAB if they're going to be working on the show. So.
That's true.
That's where I come from. Again, I don't know the specifics, so I just kind of wanted to sort of like enter this into a conversation very quickly. I can see a world in which this is completely justifiable, but you know, if Science are going to invite them out anyway, just get them on for a series, guys. Like, show us what EU can do, or at least let them prove what EU can do. Because you know, we've been starved of the EU talent for RLCS for so long. You know, Shogun's not been around for a while. I think that fucking Stumpy and Cole could absolutely rock a LAN final, or not a LAN final, but actually no, fuck that. No, they can do a LAN final. I think they're really worth it. I think they could really, you know, bring something really cool to the fold.
They're brighten up the desk, definitely.
Absolutely,
love those two lads as personalities.
So yeah, I'm not sure what the situation was. I'm not sure if they're going to come out and clarify it after this show goes to air. I don't even know if they listen. But you know, to be honest, like there's a part of me that feels a bit bittersweet about this whole thing because they're right there. They're right there. Come on, Sarnix. Let them on the show. Let them go to the RL.
I just love, like, I can imagine, just like, can you imagine the image of like Colin Stumpy just like reaching out so close they can almost touch it to that casting desk, and there's like just slap the two letters EU over them and just like the NA RLCS over to the side. And it's just like, we want it so bad but can't reach. Proper meme territory shit. I love it.
No, man, but obviously, you know, I don't know what your thoughts are about this. You know, I know that you just said it. You think it's really, really cool. I don't know. Now that I brought that topic, what are your thoughts?
Like I said, I reckon this had just been down to work. Maybe their visa only worked so that they could work at that one event, so they'd have to get a separate one to work on the RLCS, and that's just too much effort to go through. That can quite happen because, you know, when you get like a work visa, you can do. Like, the company that brought them out to work at the exposition might have only had them on a 5-day contract, you know, and so they had only had a 5-day work visa, to which they had then planned to get a separate visa for, you know, vacation, visiting, all of that sort of shit afterwards. So, there you go. Like, if it was just down to that, understandable.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's understandable if there's an explanation, but again, they're right there. Just let them on, just for one day, just for one fucking
it's
day.
the tease.
It's the ultimate cock tease at the moment. That's the issue. That's the issue. You know, again, real happy for those guys for getting out to America and doing some really good shit. But you know, it's a part of me that wants a little bit more. So there you go. That's our news for this week. Of course. We'll be waiting out to catch up anything that comes up in the next week or so. For now, we're going to move on to our mailbag segment. Of course, you at home can ask us a mailbag by joining the Discord via the link in the show notes and description of every single version of this podcast. I'm going to the mailbag channel that allows you to send us a mailbag, a question, a topic of anything you want us to discuss, and chances are we'll answer it live on air as we go to the last half of Frostbite's big fuck off wall of questions as he asks 3 for this week. For starters, is it possible for there to be a truly dominant player in Rocket League? Example, Simple in CS. Now, for those of you who don't watch Counter-Strike, Simple is widely considered right now to be the best player in the game. Like he's often been considered to be the hard carry for his team. He's sort of like people often say, like, yeah, if Na'Vi have Simple, then the rest of them are just fucking sandbags because they don't often win LAN events whenever they have a chance. That they just won one recently, but you know, Simple's just been performing
whenever you watch CS, you can see sometimes Simple will just be there, like he'll start the round with a sniper, and then he's just got a teammate there. Purely his job is to take that sniper off him and give him an assault rifle to continue on. Like that is sort of like how they play, and when he can just work wonders there, it makes sense, you know. So having a player that is that good, and you're trying to use them as a utility, it makes sense.
Yeah, and the point is that basically Frostbite is asking, can we see a player like that who can essentially carry his teammates and essentially, if he was put on the best team in the world, make them to be the greatest team of all time, is what he's asking. And I wanted to start with you.
This last week.
Did we? I don't think I remember. Alpha? Are you talking about Alpha?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think Alpha's got the potential to do that right there. I think he has, but like I want, because like the thing about comparing a really dominant player in Counter-Strike is very different to comparing a stupidly dominant player in Rocket League, because you know the skill set is sort of like, you know, tangible there in Counter-Strike. I don't think I can say the same for Rocket League, but you're the analyst, so like tell me what you think.
So I would say yes, you can have one player that is a sort of carry. The difference being that it is less noticeable in Rocket League because there's 3 players, of course. When you got a whole team of 5 in Counter-Strike, then it is a bit different. Plus, with the whole sort of mind game aspects, like Counter-Strike, I quite like to liken to chess in a lot of ways, like the hold,
yeah,
and then you do a big push. Rocket League is a lot of continuous, consistent action. So you've got different mindsets of carry. Like, arguably, you could, with the whole conversation, you could talk about K-Dop. His move over to Vitality has turned Vitality from what was a bottom-of-the-rung RLCS team last season to the current leaders of RLCS. Spoilers for later, I guess, but
I mean, if you haven't seen the results this week, then oh, fucking hell.
Stop this podcast, go watch RLCS from this week, and then come back.
And be shocked.
But yeah, essentially, you could argue to that, and K-Dop is a fantastic bloody player. Like, I can remember seeing a tweet this week from Greg and saying, like, he is the French role model, and the French region is probably the strongest region in the whole of Rocket League. I would say, of course, it is. Many could argue to different regions, whatnot, but him being a role model was Greg's sort of statement, and it is purely because he is such a strong player in all different aspects, and arguably to that team, he has just made Vitality so much stronger. But the argument against that is that it's the whole team effort, and he's fit into the roster, and they've adapted to him. And
I was just interjecting. I was going to say that, to be honest. I was going to say that, well, to me, it seems more like he's sort of the element that's allowed Fairy Peak to step up, and now Fairy Peak is sort of like the contender for being that dominant player on Vitality. So, you know, it's a bit of a weird one because team composition matters that much more in Rocket League because it is a 3v3 rather than a 5v5 game. So with that being said, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say in terms of this, but like who would you consider to be like a candidate for stepping up to be that true dominant player? Like obviously Alpha is like just so mechanically gifted. He's fucking insane. So I guess at one point Bluey was also in that particular camp, you know, like back when, especially during the frontline days, and like we saw him and he needed to come up into the RLCS, and we were just like, holy shit, this kid's the next big thing. who else would you say would probably be on that list?
So in a lot of regards, we've already seen Turbo. When you think about it, going on and being arguably a massive carry, because you got to remember at the same time, when you think about carry, you think more of a very mechanically skilled player. You're not thinking of the mental game as such. Violent Panda on Dignitas was very much the captain, come up with the plans, and the whole team follow through. You can see that on many different games and such. So my bet is always Alpha. I look throughout the entire sort of region. Ignite for me still has that possibility to rise that level. Fairy Peak, I'm going to be harsh in saying it, but I do think he has peaked. Not like as in such of, I don't think like I did 3 seasons ago that he is going to be the world's best player.
Yeah.
He's a fucking fantastic player, don't get me wrong. And I'm glad that he's back into a form with his new with the new vitality, because I was worried. Like last season, us all thinking, oh, he's probably a problem. You need a slightly different attacker instead of Patchy going. And I will say, hands down, impressive stuff from the vitality guys to come up with a different solution to what we all thought. And it is the one that is currently, I've already said, I reckon Vitality going on and winning the whole of RLCS, So it is one that works and is phenomenal. But I honestly would not, like, with Rocket League, like we said, being a 3v3 game, picking one single player that can have the potential to be the absolute greatest in the world, being the hardest carry and truly dominant, is so hard to see. Like, for me, I reckon it's Alpha because I can see him growing even more than what he is now. But that he's the only one which I can possibly say that towards. And even then, I'm sort of, it's more of a hope because I like what he does and all of that, rather than a true belief in it. If that makes sense, it's like,
yeah, no,
if
I
it
get what
was
you
to
mean.
happen, it would be him. But I don't think really it's going to happen. Rocket League relies upon 3 players in unison and being of such a high caliber together, rather than one guy that can just stomp and do like a 1 versus 4 in Counter-Strike,
Well, just to liken back to the Counter-Strike thing, like just to sort of like really stress how important the team play it is to a star player's sort of role, is that Cold Zero is an AWP right now for a team called MIBR. MIBR are a Brazilian squad, and they had a support player that was called Taco. Now, at some point during the rise of the teams that had the most firepower, they decided they're going to replace Taco, who's a support player, and they're going to bring a firepower player in. And then what happened as soon as that happened is that Cold Zero's AWPing skill hit the floor, went through the floor, hit the basement, went through the basement some more, and then carried on being one of the worst players on that team
Kept
for a
on
while.
going and said hello to Satan down in hell. Yeah,
exactly. Like that's what happened to Cold Zero's form after Taco, the support player, left. So that's taking out 1/5 of a roster, right? Just 1/5 of a roster, and how it affected a completely different part of the roster because of how that support element did not support the main star or upper from being good. That's just 1/5. In Rocket League, you're taking away a full third, right? That's a massive chunk of a team to take away. So there are a lot of factors around it. Again, I would probably lean towards Alpha if I had to pick one player, but it's not just as simple as saying this guy, add to your team and he's fucking amazing, and the team's fucking amazing, or his skill carries them to championships. It doesn't work like that in Rocket League, I don't think. Anyway.
And even then, when we look at Alpha, just for example, on that team, I am going to say with Savage, Devo has stepped his game up. So Alpha isn't looking like the dominant carry on that side anymore, So that's a weird sort of level. And it's what has got Savage like looking like I would say rather quite stable in RLCS. I mean, we'll go over this week's results, of course, but yeah, it's definitely Barca are going to be in RLCS for a long time. It feels like with how good the roster are, and that in a way, like we're going last season. We're like, oh, I really want Alpha to be on like PSG or Dignitas get picked up by them, and it's suddenly going, oh no, Barcelona. He's just going to stick with them forever because they're good enough to be like to make it top 4 potentially.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for your question, Frostbite. Move on to your second one, of course. He asks, why are there so many international teams in Rocket League? And what he means by that is there is no real team of one particular nationality. Again, he likens back to Counter-Strike, where you've got Astralis, who are Danish, you've got Fnatic, who are Swedish, you've got NIP, who are also Swedish, and there are only one or two rosters that are really sort of like, internationally based. They're based around Europe, they're based around CIS, etc. As Rocket League is a very different story, and to be honest, I don't really know the answer to this question, Bacon. Like, the best sort of thing I can, the best thing that I can sort of like, answer is that with Counter-Strike, since it is a 20-year-old game, sort of like the roots going back to the days of 1.6, you kind of had to fit international squads because there wasn't really many options. Internet wasn't amazing back then. You couldn't jump onto an online forum and just say, hey, I'm LFT, and then just go for that. You had to play with friends, you had to play with your national lands. You had to play with a very different sort of mindset because the international circuit wasn't it wasn't a very feasible sort of idea. Versus Rocket League, which has come up in 2015. Esports is well established, and there's only a few nations that have stayed with that sort of mindset. Everybody else has sort of like gone to different places.
Yeah, it is exactly that. Like, you take CS and it's long-standing. Lots of LANs. Every single, LAN event will have a CS tournament. So a lot of orgs will want to sponsor a team and send them off to that, of course. Rocket League, you don't have that so much. If I look at British esports orgs as such, you're looking at, your Comrade Game and that, which just wanted to partake in the £1,000 events. And their sort of payment for players is accommodation, sometimes, because quite often they'll just sleep at the LAN and that, but travel expenses, all that sort of shit. Whereas when you get to the bigger level, it makes more sense to play on the international scale, where you've got a bigger pick of better players and such, and go from there. Even then now, travel's so easy. If I can get one player, say from France over to England for Insomnia, it's not that much in the grand scheme of things travel wise. Like, you only, instead of spending £50 on trains, you just have to spend double that and go up to 100, and you can, if you're planning ahead anyway, get train travel that cheap. And it is this modern age. Like, I'll liken it to Overwatch, where quite often the contenders EU teams are all fucking spread out and split up amongst the whole of Europe. That's not really, in the modern age of esports, a very much idea of, you're all English or you're all French. Admittedly, in Rocket League, we do have a lot of French nationality rosters, but that's just because there's so many good French players. Same could be argued with Germans, but that is how it is,
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of sort of like ended up that way. And I guess the feed into his next question, a bit of a follow-up question, is that he asks a lot of teams to get big sponsors from their native country. For example, BIG, which is short for Berlin International Gaming, gets sponsored by Horlux, and Vitality by Renault, Fragsters by Vision Gaming, ENCE by Attila, and so on and so forth. So do you think players should create more nationally based rosters in order to help bring in more sponsors and possibly more football clubs? Yes and no. Is my answer.
If it was as simple to just be a one nationality roster, why hasn't Astralis picked up the Danish Vikings roster? It's as simple as that. It's not as simple as, you're all French, you're all German, thus we're just going to pick you up for that. It's not that much. Orgs don't have that mindset essentially to it, do they?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because it does work and it doesn't work. There's a bit more to it because some teams want to go for the best players. Like Vitality don't have a full French roster in that regard. Yes, they do have 2/3 of the roster being French, but it's not full French because they want to try and compete on an international level.
There's only 1/3 French last season.
Yeah, exactly. They only had Fairy Peak. It was like one French, one German, one Scottish. So, now that they've got two French, it's a completely different story. But at the same time, at a lower level, I can see it kind of working out. In Switzerland, we do that with the TCS Esports League. Obviously, TCS being a major thing in Switzerland, but like nowhere else in the world. And I can see that also being, and obviously, ENCE for Finland also were a really big organization in Finland, even though they weren't competing on an international level until the last year or so. So, I can see it working on a smaller basis, but for organizations that want to go big, for example, your Bigs, your Renaults, your ENCEs, the ones that really want to go, and also, of course, bringing also the guys like Mousesports and Dignitas and all the other teams that currently compete in the RLCS circuit, you want to aim a bit higher than just going for a national team.
Plus, for international teams to want to pick up a purely national team and get them to that level, the same with players that go from national rosters, there's got to be enough national tournaments where only English players, only French players playing it, which we do not have within Rocket League at the moment. You do within, say, Counter-Strike, where you've got the ESL Pro League and all of that, where they go purely for country-based, or not Pro League, sorry, Premiership. Or
the
whatever.
national leagues,
Yeah, the national leagues, which they run, which we don't have within Rocket League. We do have stuff like Frag, and that's starting up, and TCS, which is great to see. Of course, Rocket Get do all their stuff with the French ones as well, like Gamer League and whatever. And I know the Germans have a couple bits, but generally the national ones at the moment within Germany, France, and England seem to be university leagues, which is a very common thing anyway, but that's not catering to the highest level. Like, I'm just going to say, Jay, at the moment, I'm on the sort of like, I wouldn't say plan stage, it's like before going to sponsors, orgs, whatever, trying to put together how would you run a UK league? Because, of course, the UK, you've got England, you've got Scotland, you've got Wales, you would include Ireland as well as Northern Ireland. And how would the logistics to all that work? How would you get going? Because the UK is a very spread out sort of nation with the teams. Like, you'll get one player. Like, I can remember Polar playing with the WLF guys back in the Renegade Cups and all of that. How would you entice players to sort of get together? Because, I mean, the bubble scene is quite good at the moment in the sense of no one sticks to a team. Like, they're as fickle as pig shit. And so you could pick teams together, but then what's to get them to stay together for a league play, which for sponsors anyway, would have to be like 3 months long because, or I'm saying 3 months long, but you know, the whole period from qualifiers to the finals. How would you entice bubble scene players at the moment, which are trying to make it into RLRS, to go, okay, we've got to have 2 Englishmen and a Scot or something like that. And it's really hard when realistically, again, with the community guidelines from Psyonix, you'll struggle to get above $5,000, which isn't worth it for the players, it seems.
Yeah, and obviously that's like a bit of a commentary about the whole scene itself, like, you know, in the way that how centralized it is. But at the same time, you know, I do have some sort of like reservations about, like, you know, holding like, you know, a certain nationality majority bias. Like, you know, I like the way that ESL have decided they're going to run their España series. You know, they've got FC Barcelona in there, but they've only got one Spanish player in by Matos. Like, that's it. You know, that's all that's required, one Spanish player. And I think with the current landscape of Rocket League, like, tournaments like that would work much better if they were like, right, let's have one Spanish player, or let's have one Swiss player, or let's have one Nordic player. It does feel wrong to a certain extent, but because of how nationally spread they are, and because obviously, like, it's so difficult to find a team, you know, like you know, there are issues within the context of. There are issues in the context of trying to, like, you know, just destroy lineups essentially for the sake of this one tournament. You know, that's the issue that it sort of brings up when as you know, as Frostbite said, you know, there are so many international teams in Rocket League.
For me, for anyone to do like a national league, it's got to be 50% rounded up. So Rocket League, with it being 3v3, it's got to be 2 out of the 3 players. CS, it's got to be 3 out of the 5 players being from that nation. And that seems to be roughly like the competitive sort of like integrity to a national league. So the ESL one, I'm very much on that seems a bit you know? But they're doing it because that's the accessibility and them trying to run it with ease, and it makes sense. I want ESL within Rocket League more and more. I want them to get more hands-on and be able to do more stuff, so I'll let that fly purely because I want ESL to run the exact same thing over in the UK, in France, in Germany.
Oh, I think that's all we can say about that. Thank you very much for your questions again, Frostbite. Again, if you do want to leave us a mailbag question, you can follow the links in the show notes and description of the video and audio versions of this podcast. Obviously, we're not in Twitch today. No video versions, unfortunately, for you guys at home. Oh, I guess there is a video version, but with no cams. But, of course, it's in the description of every single show. Have you got a new haircut? Oh shit!
Yeah, like I went to the barber's this morning.
Oh shit! Are you going insomnia? I have to see if I can catch you. Oh no, you're not going insomnia, are you? Oh no, sorry. Anyway, but yes, you can follow the description, the link in the description, and of course you can go to our Discord where you can join our little community, and of course ask us a question in the mailbag channel via that Discord channel. So thanks again, Frostbite, for your questions. Let's move to our tournaments for this week. Of course, it's the first week of the RLRS, so we've seen some of the big dogs Dogs sort of try and find their first little bit of footing, and we'll kind of run through some of these results. Xenomoon taking on Method, and they lost that particular series at 3-2. ARG faced off against the Baguette Squad. They won their series 3-1. Baguette Squad did. Veloce stomped Xenomoon at 3-0, although there was some close matches.
Stomped.
Not stomped per se, but it was a close series in terms of the close games. Complexity, however, they had a very good series against Method at 3-0, of which one match went 4-0. And then Baguette Squad in the off-stream matches faced off against Complexity and Veloce, and they lost those matches respectively 3-0 and 3-1. Leaving our current standings at Complexity and Veloce up 2-0, with Complexity having a one-game difference above Veloce. Method and Baguette Squad rounding up the top 3 and 4 at 1-1 and 1 and 2 respectively. Right Overs and Vikings taking the lower middle of the pack, currently not playing a single series so far in the RLRS. And low down, it's ARG and Xenomoon with 0-1 and 0-2 respectively. Let's start with Complexity, because these guys were the team that we looked at and it was like, yeah, okay, these guys are looking really hot, really, really good, and yes, they most certainly are. They're just one week in, and they have a 6-0 record currently in terms of games.
Complexity are doing as everyone expected coming into this, and Jay, they're looking dominant. Like, they're just going to be unstoppable. They are the wrecking ball. And don't get me wrong, Complexity did have Baguette Squad, but they also had Method, which people had eyes on. And for them to just completely dismantle Method, 4-2, 4-0, and then 2-1, Complexity are going to be top dogs this season, and it's sort of like just confirming what everyone was thinking.
Yeah, you know, like, I didn't get to watch any of the matches, but like it was kind of expected to see Complexity sort of dominate, considering how they looked when they brought Flakes into the roster. You know, I expect them to promote this season, and it looks like they're already on track to do that with those 2 victories right there, already, you know, putting them on the right track, putting them on pole position essentially for this regular season. So, you know, well done to Complexity. I didn't expect anything less, and of course, you fulfilled those expectations and then some with the Method victory. Now moving on to Xenomoon. Welcome to the RLRS, boys. You've not had a very good week at all, with 2 of the toughest squads in week 1 as well. Like, it's very unfortunate drawing for them, but they've just been, you know, not smashed per se by Method. You know, it was a 3-2 series, so it was relatively close. But Veloce, however, they weren't messing around, and Xenomoon really, really struggled on that particular front.
So Xenomoon and Baguette Squad drew the short straw in the first week, and I'm going to, should I say, liken the two? I know you've got Baguette Squad is next on the talking list, but
you can liken the two. I can see the similarities. Go for it.
Yeah. So Baguette Squad had to face ARG, Complexity, and Velocity. Xenomoon have Method and Velocity. So coming into RLRS, the three of the returning teams, Velocity, Complexity, and Method, were the 3 hot picks to make it into top 4, of course, and they've had to face them. Now, for me, Xenomoon, I would have probably picked to beat Method. It was a 3-2 series, so super close, of course. Really odd games if you watched it. It didn't feel like everyone was comfortable on that pitch. It was a little bit odd. And then against Veloce, 1 goal differential in all 3 games. This was super close, with Veloce getting what I would probably say is a deciding win there for them to come out in top 4. So them being 2-0 up now, 1 win against the Baguette Squad side for me is the expected one, but the need to win to stay in top 4 will probably be against Xenomoon. So good stuff for them as a starting point. But Baguette Squad, you look at that, they've lost to Veloce and Complexity, which are the 2 expected ones. But for them to take down ARGJ, no one would have thought that coming into RLRS, would they?
Well, honestly, it kind of rings echoes of the concerns that I had after the qualifiers. I was like, ARG don't look as good as I saw them back in the Renegade Cup, and this is exactly what I thought would happen. It was like not what I thought would happen, but what I feared would happen. You know, I said that I was concerned that ARG were coming into this tournament weak, and that's basically what happened. They lost to Baguette Squad. I would have never put ARG, considering what they did in the Renegade Cup, to lose to the Baguette Squad, you know, and that was my concern coming into this one. Again, I haven't seen the match, so I don't know the specifics of why things happened, why things went the way that they did. I don't know if you were watching this, Bacon. I mean, again, I was away for the weekend, so...
Yeah, just the Spanish side weren't as aggressive and fast as they normally are, where they just basically beat you to the ball every single time. The Baguettes were able to just cut them out and keep themselves solid. Like, when you look at it, 1-0 in the first game was just the Baguettes getting that goal and then just near enough sticking to it, and it was a long war of attrition. The second game, 6-3, was just no one thinking about defence, really. And then in game 4, the Baguettes just gave up, and ARG were looking good, but then Baguettes were able to sort themselves out in game number 4 and get the 2-0 win. It was a very weird sort of... ARG did start to show up during game 2, but it was too late, and when they finally got the lead, the Baguettes really found the solution to it in game number 4, and it was just... It was actually really quite cool to see that the Baguettes, which were an understated team, even by us, and I will probably say they are not going to make it into top 4, but that's due to the caliber of the teams. They're showing that they've got great signs, and this is a team which I'm hoping stick together even after this RLRS, even if they don't make it through, and just keep developing, because there's so much potential from these lads if they've got that mental sort of aspect in them already.
I can see sort of like that being the case. I mean, obviously they've had not the best of weeks with Loshe and Complexity, but again, just to jump onto the ARG bandwagon again, like what does this say going forward? Because they've got some tough competition next week. They've got Method to contend with on the mainstream, and then the secondary stream will be the Right Overs. I mean, not sure what the Right Overs are going to be able to do against that, but you said ARG are looking weak. I saw it during the qualifiers as well. Like, is this already the end of the ARG sort of run right here? Like, this is
again one this game, team. Jay.
It has been one
That's
game.
That's what I'm going to look at.
Considering again,
it.
Right, let's think about this. In January, they were white hot, and then coming into the qualifiers, they were looking white not, and then now they've lost pretty badly to the Baguette squad. With one of the games going, I think it was like 6-3 or something. And they were unable to score goals in certain games that obviously the Baguette squad were taken away so easily.
Yeah, so looking at this, my thoughts are ARG are locked out top 2. I don't see ARG being able to beat Complexity, and so for them to get the loss against one of the lower squads, this for me is them locked out the top 2 spots. But the option of 3rd or 4th and staying in RLRS is still there for them. They've just got to get a bit of fortitude about themselves, pull them up after last week, and then bring them in, because this coming week, like I said, they've got the Right Overs, which they could win, and Method, which they could win, potentially. So we're hoping, and then going forward, they've got, in week 3, Complexity and Veloce. So that's the one where they've got the big rivals. So this week coming, with Right Overs and Method, they've got to pull their socks up and get this week under their belt and essentially come out with wins to give them some confidence going to week 3, where they're going to need that confidence against super hard opponents.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I can't agree with that anymore. Like, pull your socks up. Like, just pull them up really badly, guys, because you guys were looking amazing, and now you guys are looking pretty...
All the way up to the knees.
All the way up to the knees. Like a little Japanese schoolgirl. Right, let's move on to the RLCS. Let's move on to the RLC.
Weak, can
you? No, I can't. Whatever. I mean, I've owned it at this stage. Whatever. Right. RLCS was a weird week, Bacon. The rundown of results real quick. The first 3 results were all 3-0s. With Vitality beating FC Barcelona, PSG beating Dignitas, TSM beating Triple Trouble. And in the last 2 results, it was the Bricks beating out Mousesports at 3-2, and then Vitality beating Dignitas in a stomping 3-0, leaving your current standings looking like Renault Vitality and Solo Mid being up there at 3-0 and 2-0. PSG, the Bricks and FC Barcelona tied in at 3rd through 5th at 1-1. Mousesports down in 6th alongside Triple Trouble at 7th at 1-2 respectively. And in 8th is Dignitas at 0 and 3.
Yikes.
Okay, let's start with our feature match. The one match that we thought was going to be absolutely banging, the one that we thought, okay, right, no, this is going to be amazing. We saw FCB destroy Dignitas, and they up against Vitality, who also destroyed PSG. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be such a sick match to watch. And then FC Barcelona did not score a single goal. What happened here?
All I can say is thank fuck that Barca only had one game this week, because this is like it's allowed them to go into next week, which again they only have one game next week. Sorry, I say next week, this weekend coming. Sorry, and then the last 2 weeks they've got 2 games each week. Pretty sure. Yeah. But yeah, thank fuck, because they did not look 0 goals in an entire series. Vitality were fucking phenomenal on the stage. They were white hot. They were shit hot. This is Vitality playing the best Rocket League I have ever seen. And it shows when a team like Barca can't do anything. They could do jack all to get even anything going here, because every single build-up they were trying to do, Vitality were closing out. Their interception play, Jay, today, and their closing down was immaculate, untouchable. They even had a couple of times, I'm just going to say in the Dignitas game, where they're double committed, and it didn't matter. They were quick enough to do it. And it's ridiculous. Like, I think I was talking about it last week, of how they're so good on their defense at the moment, Vitality, that they'll hit the ball off to the side, get a pass the whole width of the pitch, and then have like a man in the middle to receive, and they can build up and get a goal that quickly. It is mind-bogglingly good. And so Vitality there, I'm not surprised they got the win, but that convincingly means that Barca need to spend some more time analysing, especially after last week, because Vitality, I would say, didn't do a massive amount different over last week. They were just playing brilliantly, and their opponents weren't ready for it. So, to me, it means Barca need to go away, analyse, and prepare for matches more.
Well, do you think that they came into this one unprepared, maybe right in the highs of the last week? You know, I mean, like, you definitely feel like that, you know? Like, I didn't get to watch the match, so I don't really know exactly how things went down with on that particular front.
They were dysfunctional.
Very dysfunctional? Oh, geez. Yeah, that does not sound good at all. And that kind of harkens back to what we were saying last season.
Those weeks, you know, I say when everything goes to shit and Bluey starts to try and solo carry his whole team, and it's a never-ending downward spiral after that, because Rocket League, you can't solo continuously. You know, you've got to pull it out of your hat. It's like a little bit of a trick. You can't do it continuously, because then your team is just going to go to shit after that. And it was just the whole team frustrated, not talking to each other, and it just got worse and worse.
Well, it harkens back to what we were saying last week, you know, in terms of, in terms of what we were, in terms of what we thought that Savage could have done in the RLCS if they were able to get promoted, which, of course, you know, is all about that sort of, like, confidence and that sort of, like, defensive not holding up. And yeah, like, if they aren't talking to each other, if they aren't rotating appropriately, then the defensive will definitely not hold up, Bacon. And from the sounds of what you've been telling me, that definitely sounds like that was the case for FC Barcelona. So, you know, don't get overconfident, boys. You're good, but you know, you got Vitality here, and Vitality, they are looking really good right now. Like, you know, like last week, obviously you said that there was a chance that Vitality could win the whole championship. Honestly, after seeing what they did against Dignitas during the later part of the stream, like, I can pretty much see where you're coming from. I can back your words right now. And actually, I guess a good segue to talk about Dignitas, because fuck me, they looked terrible this week. They looked fucking atrocious. Including they are 0-3 down so far, with the 1-3 loss against FCB last week. And in this week, they went 0-3 down against Vitality. Not surprising, considering where Vitality are at right now, with them just wiping the floor with everybody. But then they lost to PSG. And now, PSG are a great online team, but Dignitas at one point were the greatest team, period. So
can we talk about that first game as well? 7-2. PSG.
I was gonna say, like, they could not deal with PSG pressure, like, whatsoever. Like, it looked fucking terrible. It looked really, really bad.
And PSG aren't even the most pressuring team. Like, it was that because they just rotate very well, and everyone can do brilliant aspects of each. Like, Vitality pressured harder, what with their interception plays, and Dignitas were ready for that. It was like they're more into the flow, and you can see Dignitas were not ready today. Not today, on Sunday, because that first game, they just got absolutely... I mean, we're doing our own show, they got taken in the showers, essentially, a prison cell, sort of. Someone dropped the soap there, and
I love how you had to
7-2.
try. I love it how you tried your best to try and make it as PG as possible, then realised, hold on, we're not actually doing a proper broadcast. This is just RLAfterShock.
Yeah, I'm allowed to do this. And then they were better in games 2 and 3. You know, the overtime in game number 2, and then it was only 3-1 in game number 3, but they should have not been 3-0. They were not ready for this. And again, Dignitas, where they're such a good team, and at the same time, they're in the mindset of they are the best team, it seems, they get frustrated. It's almost, it's not as bad as Barca, of course, but where there's such a high caliber team, when they're getting beaten like that, it's worrying, Jay. And I mean, I'm not worried if they come out bottom 2 of league play and go into the demotion tournament. They should stay up. That's not a problem at all. If they do go down, and then geez, something is going wrong within Rocket League. But here, this is what the fuck is going on behind the scenes for this team to just come in to a day of league play and be this stressed, this flustered, this frustrated. I know there's a lot of pressure on the individual days of league play, and that's why a lot of people want a bit of a different format and all of that, but this is Dignitas. They've dealt with this problem numerous times before. You know, they've got a long history. So for it to be affecting them now, there's something going on in the back end, and hopefully they can fix it, because then, you know, they're only 3 games down. We know from the RLCS format that 2 wins and you should be coming out 6th, you know, Jay? So here, they're not out of it yet. They've got 4 potential wins. If they win the next 4 matches, they could even potentially come out 2nd. And it's Dignitas. You can't you know, go against them for having a crack at that and even pulling it off. We know Dignitas, they should beat Mouse. I don't know, Mouse are looking actually pretty quite good, but
I was going to say.
They should beat Mouse, they should beat Triple Trouble, which would give them safety, and then if they beat Bricks and TSM, they could even get topped, get 2nd in league play. We're still in the 2nd week going into the 3rd, so don't count Dignitas out yet, and I'd imagine with the whole sort of org structure behind them, after seeing them lose the first 3 games, they would have been trying to sort them out, you know?
But that also comes with a caveat of, if they did win all their games from here on out, I mean, first of all, they've got to win all their games from here on out, but they've also got to try and, they've also got to try and, also contend with the other mitigating factors of what if TSM also do well? What if PSG also do well? You know, what if they go flawless in the only series that TSM loses is against Dignitas and they've smashed everybody else out the water? Then suddenly, not looking likely for that 2nd. You know, there's a lot of factors outside of the control of Dignitas now that they've lost this many games in the only opening few weeks. You know, there was a conversation on Twitter. I think it was Gibbs that put it out, or was it? I can't remember specifically, but someone was talking about the idea that maybe Dignitas are already out of the running for LAN. And it's like, fucking hell, already? No. Jesus Christ, I think that's more of a comment on the format than really bad Dignitas'
I'm saying
format.
about them making top 2. One thing that is, in a lot of regards, I would say broken about the RLCS format, and I've never liked it, is that you can come 6th out of 8th and still make it through to the LAN, and you've got the same chances as the guy that made it 3rd. You know, say you've got 4 wins in league play out of your 7 matches, and you've got the same amount of chances as the guy that got 2 wins, or even 1 win potentially, you know, of how things go. That to me seems a little bit broken, and why we want the format changed so much, but it's still there. And if Dignitas comes 6th, I would not go against them to still make LAN. They're one of my teams that I think, even at this point, even with how they've been playing so far, even with them only winning 1 single game out of the 10 they've played, I would still put them as a team that will make LAN.
Possibly, but again, there's a lot of mitigating circumstances. We'll have to see how that goes on the Dignitas front. But to talk about even more teams that are also doing well, we'll talk about teams that are currently doing really well, not currently in the same level as Dignitas right there. Mouse Sports had a pretty good week, you know. Again, they didn't win their match against the Bricks, but you know, it's a massive improvement considering where we were at right now. You know, like it definitely felt like there's a bit of like a two notable force sort of like structure in this particular team. Like Alex and Tigray were fantastic on their passing plays, looking amazing in their front, and then a lot has really taken this striking role by the reins and is just flying straight through. Like last week, we said it was it was a good sort of like play style for Mouse Sports that was able to defeat Triple Trouble and Mac Triple Trouble relatively well. This week, though, it looked like something else entirely. Like this team is looking good.
And if a lot listens to this, I bet he's so happy that you called it a
cherry picker. Cherry picker.
Even that fucking triggers me from the broadcast. It's because a cherry picker sort of role in that just makes you think, oh, he just gets the ball handed to him and he's just got to put it in the net, easy peasy. And it's like, no, he does so much on that roster. Can you remember before RLCS started, I was like, I don't know why a lot is on this side. This team makes no sense with its current transformation, but I want them to prove me wrong, and they have, Jay.
Yeah,
this mouse looks good, and I am actually smiling ear to ear at the moment because that's what I want to see. I don't want any team to do bad. I want everyone to play the best. I actually really don't have any favorites of like teams. Like I can remember, you know, it's like with all LANs, like you just cheer on everyone. And I have that mentality to Rocket League because I like everyone within the whole sort of scene. Admittedly, I don't care much for NA, but that's just because I spend all my time watching EU and caring about EU. C'est la vie. But for Mouse to really turn it around, and when I loved them so much last season, I think that's what really got me down, is that change up from last season. And for them to pull it back up again, it's made me a happy boy. And considering their 2 losses so far, 1 to TSM, which you'd always expect, and 2 the Bricks, the ex-Flipside roster, which are still looking very good, and how close they brought that to the Bricks roster, which I'll go on to that in just a second, but it looks like they're pretty much prepared and they're fighting and they're putting up a hell of a fight to be in the top 6, which would be phenomenal for them because they are a team which I would worry could drop down if they do end up in the bottom 2. But if they stay up in the top 6, that's phenomenal. I don't think they make it to land just because of all the teams here, but I want every team essentially to still stay in RLCS next season. It's always that case. But yeah, against Bricks, they do have to work some shit out because that second game where they lost 7-2 was atrocious. Even then, in the third game where they lost 5-2, was them figuring it out, but not completely yet, and then bringing it back for a 3-0 win in Game 4. Then they lost in Game 5. But Mouse at the moment, they look a very competitive team unless they start losing goal after goal. Once they're down by, say, 3 goals, they're done for that game. And that's the only thing they need to change right now is a mental attitude to Rocket League. And then they'll be fucking phenomenal.
Well, the Bricks have always had this thing in their sort of like camp where it's like, okay, well, maybe they aren't going to get the early few games, but when they get started, they just like start flying. And that's certainly what it looked to me there from Game 2, you know, like they looked obviously dominant in Game 2 and in Game 3 as well, obviously with that 5-2 as well as the 7-2. So, you know, when they get started and when they get going, they're looking good. And you know, the same thing going back to like the likes of DreamHack in the past, where they had that where they had that whole thing going. I think they had a similar situation in WSOE, but it has always been part of the Brick style to not always get the early sort of advantage. Now
they
Sports,
read
obviously,
their opponents and adapt. They don't come in essentially with game plans. They sack game number 1 normally to figure out how their opponents are playing that day and come up with a strategy on the spot. That's what it seems like anyway from the analysts' point
absolutely.
of view. And that's a play style which, like, that triggers me to some regard, I guess, because of course you'd be there like, don't throw a single game. But the difference amongst the scene does work, and it is what works as their strategy. So you can't like.
Well, I mean, personally, I see it more like an eco round. So it's like, yeah, do you know what? We'll let this one go, but we'll come back stronger in the next one, and it'll be fine. Like that's the way I see it from the bricks. I mean, back to my Counter-Strike references, but hey.
Yeah, you have to win 16 rounds. There are 30 rounds in total, without including overtime in Counter-Strike. So yes, you can throw around, you can eco. Rocket League, you only have to win 3. There are only 5 games. You cannot eco, Jay. That's yikes. That's risky business, dude.
Right, okay, right. If you're doing that in game 4, all right, okay, fine. But game 1, I think that's a noble sacrifice right there, just to get your feet on the ground, That's the way I see it, right? If you're doing that in game 4, sure, okay, I'll be happy to shoot you down. But for bricks, it's working. They got their series victory. Yeah. They brought it close against Triple Trouble as well, in their mid portion. They were looking really, really good at that particular series last week. So, I think it's absolutely fine with the bricks. And again, with Mousesports, not only not able to contend with that, it looks good on their part as well. The fact that they were able to at least bring a game back during the mid portion of that series when the bricks were really, really looking hot.
Yeah, and we're not saying that, of course, bricks throw all their game ones and that. No, they're just playing in a certain style where they can analyze their opponents, and it's one that's less effective in winning that game. But it's that whole sort of they'll lose that battle, but they'll win the war, and it's one that you've just got to commend essentially, because I like variances, and I've said there's 4, maybe even 5 different playstyles within EU Rocket League, and I love variances in different playstyles because it makes it more exciting to watch. And so that's all quite cool in my books, and I'll allow. I do wonder if they do change up that idea some point down the line, because the way they'll change that, they've got a very, I would say, watery, fluid play style in how they do play, to which they adapt around their opponents. They don't have one, like, you can't nail their play style down to a play style. It's more just a mental attitude to a series, which is cool.
Right, well, that being said, that's all our talking points done for this week of the RLCS. I forgot to do this for the RLRS as well, but we're going to be looking forward to next week because we've got 6 matches for the RLCS. I guess I'll ask you about the RLRS matches as well in a moment's time, but for now, next week's matches are going to be looking at Triple Trouble versus PSG, the Bricks versus Vitality, TSN versus FC Barcelona, Dignitas versus Mousesports, the Bricks versus PSG, and TSN versus Vitality. Of those matches, which ones are you looking forward to?
So Triple Trouble PSG, because this is one which Triple Trouble will be wanting to win. If they do, they secure themselves into... They should secure themselves anyway into top 6. Same can be said for PSG, so this is a decider one. And it's one that both teams will chalk themselves up for. In a lot of regards, I'm not going to count the Vitality Bricks one, but the Vitality TSM. You look at the current standings, it is 3-0, 9 games to 1 for Vitality, and 2-0, 6 games to 1 for Team Solo Mid. These two seem to be the 2 strongest teams so far this season, and going into it, Team Solo Mid, coming into this RLCS, were on a bit of a downfall, weren't they? But they picked themselves up, and for me, this is going to be the true either... Are Vitality as good as what they seem to be so far? Or, on the opposite side, TSM, are they finally out of that slump? And so that, for me, is going to be a brilliant match to watch. And then also, to some regards, Dignitas versus Mouse. Because if Mouse beat Dignitas...
If Mouse beat Dignitas, then it's fucking over.
Dignitas are fucked. It's done. They're done.
Exactly, like that was my thing as well. I was like, do I want to pick Dignitas on my particular picks? And yeah, I have to say those will be my matches to watch. TSN Vitality is going to be a hype one, and yeah, Dignitas that will be last chance saloon. And again, against a team that are looking pretty fucking good right now. Like imagine the hell that they would get dragged through if Mousesports won that matchup. But moving on to the RLRS as well. Your top matches for next week, we've got Veloce versus Vikings, Method versus ARG, Complexity versus Veloce, Right Overs versus the Vikings, and then on the secondary stream we've got Method versus Veloce and ARG versus the Right Overs. Now I'm going to say a small caveat: you're not allowed to pick both of the second stream matches, and you know fucking why. So go for it.
Of course, it's got to be Complexity versus Veloce. Like you'd be dumb not to pick that match. It's the 2 best teams in the league. But secondly, The first match of right overs, them versus Vikings. Jay, we were talking about this before. It's going to be the very first match for right overs. Vikings would have gone up against Veloce earlier, so technically, I'm going to say if Vikings somehow beat Veloce, so Vikings will get an advantage coming into this match. But if Vikings lose against Veloce, which is the more expected results, then right overs will get the advantage in that match because of the mental aspect to it, of course. But for me, it is all about seeing how this right overs rosters will work. Skyline, Bilbo, and Classics. Calix, sorry, not Classics. Skyline, of course, a solid, even RLCS level play. He's just your anchor, middle ground. Not going to be a carry, not going to be anything outstanding, but he'll get the job done. Alex, same can be said, but for RLRS. And then Bilbo, the next lad, I reckon, and have always sung in praise to pop off. So for me, it's a bit of like fandom to that, you know?
Yeah, I can see that as well. My personal picks would probably be Complexity versus Veloce. I mean, I'd agree with you mostly, but I would also give a small little, like, honorable mention to the Method versus Veloce matchup. Because, like, the Complexity Veloce and Method versus Veloce matchup is essentially just, like, the top
one
three
I wasn't
teams.
allowed to pick. Fuck you.
Well, no, I said you can't pick both of them, right? I said you can't pick both of them. You can pick one or the other, but, you know why you can't pick both of them, Bacon, okay? So, and of course, for those of you who don't know, you'll get to see later on this weekend exactly why Bacon can't pick both of them. But yeah, that's my honorable mention to Method versus Veloce. And yeah, that's going to be it for the matches. That's going to be it for our show. We're for the first time in like many fucking weeks, we're actually about to just come close to the hour and a half mark, Bacon. We've actually hit the show's advertised time. What the fuck? That the cats and dogs are falling from the sky. Like, this is absolutely madness.
Well, we normally have so much to talk about, and we do waffle. Like, we could have wrapped this show up, I reckon, Jay, without us sidelining, like we always do, easily within an hour this week. In the grand scheme of things, there wasn't a whole massive to talk about because we didn't have a feature, you know, and we're not really going to have a feature whilst RLCS and RLRS is going on.
Unless there's something massive that happens in between that point. But I digress. Go on.
Yeah, that's the point. So, of course, I reckon if we really wanted, we could break everything down within an hour easy. But our natural just keep on nattering and fucking talking bullshit.
Well, I don't want to show this just an hour.
2 hours quite often.
I don't want to show this just an hour. I want to go in depth. I want to fucking rant. I want to show my middle fingers up to everybody in the scene.
because RLAfterShock has so much depth.
RLAfterShock. Exactly, mate. I'm not here to make your 5-minute magazine shows. I'm not here to be on here for half an hour. No, I want my 2 hours, bitch. That's what we're here for.
Like, when we were talking about this show, just for everyone at home, I was there like, I quite like an hour because, like, it's a nice, like, section bit of time, and you were there going, no, I want like 2-3 hours, and I was like, okay, buddy.
I never said 3 hours. No. I said an hour and a half to 2. That's what I said.
All right.
When we initially planned the show. But if you want a shorter show, then you can watch Squad State or Corelli's new show, which is coming out very soon. Mm-hmm. In fact, as of this episode's publication, it will be like a few hours from that point. So make sure you go ahead and get to his Twitch channel. I mean, we'll be pretty late for the EU boys, but if you're in North America, because we've actually got quite a big North American listening, which surprised me when I checked the stats. You can go ahead and watch that. You can go ahead and check that out. It's going to be a fun thing. I might stay up and watch it tonight, depending on whether I sleep. But I do have to actually get some sleep because I've got travel insomnia tomorrow, so that's going to be fun. Unfortunately, you won't be there, Bacon. I will. It does mean that I'm going to miss out all the matches this week, so I can't do a lot of analysis. So I'm kind of relying on you to do a lot of the filler for next week's show, which of course will be coming out some point on Wednesday or Tuesday. Again, there are no live streams at the moment because me and Bacon are incredibly busy and we can't really the schedules don't line up for a live show, so we continue bringing these audio only versions for you all to enjoy, and we hope you are enjoying them. So far it has been looking like that no one's really had any massive issues about not having cams, so it's fine. But that's basically going to be it from us here. I'm sure
peeps would miss looking at our ugly mugs
for an
hour and a half.
Here's the thing though, I've been told that people just put the show on and they just start playing ranked for a bit or start playing training packs, and it's like, do you know what? That is exactly what this show is designed to do. Just have some fun, chill out.
Right? Like, I do the exact same thing. I've started watching the Critical Role guys' D&D sessions. I say watching, but I do that. I put it on in the background because it's a lot of content which you don't need to actually look at. You can just listen to and appreciate it that way. And like, if people listen to us while I was playing Rocket League, score a goal for me. Do it.
Well, hopefully you just did. And with that being said, we're going to end off the show. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for listening via the video and audio versions of the podcast that are available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and most other major podcast platform distributions. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock to find your favorite platform, or request your favorite way to listen. Again, that's anchor.fm/RLAfterShock. Make sure you follow the Twitter at RLAfterShock and twitch.tv/RLAfterShock, where we should be getting some live shows coming in the next few weeks, question mark. Again, we're going to get back to doing some sort of video live stream versions of the podcast at some point soon, but again, it's just a case of TCS is on Monday, Frag League is on Tuesday, Bacon's got Sim Racing on Wednesday, and by that point it's too late to cover last week's news. So, it's a bit of a complicated one, and again, we'll kind of work on it until we bring you that sort of stuff. So just keep your eyes on all the socials, and we'll update you as things come. Bacon, any final words for this week's episode?
I'm going to sell out a little bit and say I've started streaming again, so make sure to go follow me on Twitch, Digital Bacon Gaming. I'm playing Resident Evil 2 at the moment. It's great.
I've considered live streaming, but I'm just too fucking lazy. So, any up, boys. Right. Go for it.
I was going to say, I sort of, gave up for 6 odd months just because I was too busy at work, and then suddenly, Tuesday evenings and Thursday evenings now at the moment, it seems I'm quite free often. So I was there
I mean, you wouldn't be if you were picked for Frag League. So, that would be, we could have gone down a very different route in history. But regardless, I digress. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you back here next week for even more of the RLCS, the RLRS, and the Aftershock.